However, if you do, or you do mess something up, it always helps to personalize it and admit that you were wrong. Say you were human, and unfortunately things happen. People love that, and they respond so much more when they know that they're speaking to a person and not a business.
Hey everyone, this is Nazar Akil from Max Pro.
Hi, I'm Linda.
And I'm Paul.
And we're 11 Pebbles.
Hi, this is Lopa Vandermersch from Rasa.
Oh, you're listening to,
And you are listening to the E-Comm Show.
Welcome to the Ecommerce Show, presented by BlueTuskr, the #1 place to hear the inside scoop from other e-commerce experts, where they share their secrets on how they scaled their business and are now living the dream. Now, here is your host, Andrew Math.
I'm your host, Andrew Maffetone, and today is story time. I'm going to tell you a little bit about an email marketing mistake I made years ago that leveraged some of the best data and some of the best numbers I've ever seen. So a little bit of background. Years ago, this was probably 5 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Before I was in the agency, I was technically not an agency. I was running marketing for a founder who had several companies. So it was kind of like an agency, but it wasn't. But anyway, one of the things he ran was a SaaS company. And we were targeting e-commerce sellers. And what I did was I kind of helped build out, their marketing. And one of the things we did is we did a big content play, a ton of blog posts, and we were doing, I think, a weekly newsletter. I think it was weekly. And he had a very boisterous email list. People would typically respond to this stuff. They usually were under the assumption that he was the one sending the emails. Not always, but sometimes. And this was a relatively promotional email. It wasn't a discount or anything like that. It was kind of like, here's a bunch of blog posts that we had written. Here's some stuff going on in the news. It was kind of more of an e-commerce informational weekly newsletter that we did. Anyway, so I sent out this email, and I don't know what happened. Maybe I was in a rush, maybe something. I always send emails to myself and test them and look at them on a phone and a tablet and just kind of double check everything. And for some reason, I just didn't do this day. So I sent out this email. I come into the office. I think our emails around then were going out at like 8 in the morning. I come into the office and I have so many emails, like a ridiculous amount in comparison to what I normally had. And a couple of the other people in the office were just like, dude, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. What are you talking about? Well, there was a blatant spelling error in the subject line. There was a real bad spelling error in the snippet. Then there was probably 2 or 3 more spelling errors within that email, and one really obvious one, like right in the title, right when you open it. I don't know what happened. I don't know why I didn't do it, why I didn't look. I must have just breezed through it. I can't remember what the hell happened, but so this email goes out. So I wrote it down on what happened here. So our open rates were typically 25-30% for these types of emails. This specific email was like 47.5. Like almost half the amount of people that got it opened it. The click rate was usually like a 3 to 5%. This was 12. Like it was nuts in comparison of basically doubling our metrics across the board. I didn't have a metric for a response rate, but if I did, this would be more than double. So many people emailed us, and a couple people tried to take my job, which fuck that guy. But they were like, oh, if he's not paying attention to this, then what else isn't he paying attention to? And I could do this better. And if you're hiring, let me know. It was like, all right, you took your shot. A bunch of people responded of just like, hey, you made a typo. Some people were super nice about it. Be like, oh no, can't believe this happened. Here's what you did wrong. But still a great newsletter or something like that. So there's a ton of responses. And I was like, fuck, like, what did I do? I was panicking. I was so pissed. I was so upset because I try not to do that kind of stuff. And so here's what I did. So my thought was, I need to bounce back from this. And I can't send another email apologizing for typos. I can't send another email the following week and just pretend it never happened. Something has to happen here. But our metrics were nuts. I also didn't have metrics on how many new clients we would normally get from a newsletter like that, because it was kind of just a content one. So we weren't tracking that directly. We were just kind of more indirect. And this one, that day, we had a ridiculous spike in new people coming in who were leads coming in. So even though it was crap email, it worked really well. And my thought was, okay, this is very interesting. And it's intriguing because we started joking, like, should we do spelling errors on everything? So what I did is I wrote a blog post. I don't write very often because I just get bored after a while. But I was like, I have to write this. Like, this needs to be from me as a, here's what I did, here's where I messed up, but here's the numbers that we got. And so I did one blog post. The next week, the next newsletter came around. I basically made that entire newsletter about that blog post that I wrote. And the subject line, the snippet, and all that kind of stuff were very specific to last week we fucked up and this week I'm fixing it. Like, the whole thing was like, don't worry, we double checked this one about grammar. One guy called me out for like, you didn't put this comma in the right spot. Like, screw you, I hate commas. But so sent out all this stuff. This email didn't do as well as the other one, but still did a ridiculously high open rate and click rate in comparison. And a bunch of people sent over an email saying that, like, oh, this was great. The numbers you guys got were amazing. This is a real cool, like, find. So it's basically an unwanted test that I did. And kind of what I wanted to give into this is, when you mess something up, if you can remind your consumer that you're human, like they're buying from a person, you can really connect with them and they actually appreciate that much more. They don't want to buy from a business. They want to buy from a person. And what I did is I made a personal connection with all those people by sending out that follow-up email with that blog post that explained, hi, my name is Andrew and I fuck shit up. So I sent all that out and I made a personal touch with those people to tell them, like, hey, I'm human and unfortunately shit happens. And it worked amazingly. I'm not telling you in your next email, go make a ton of typos. However, if you do, or you do mess something up, it always helps to personalize it and admit that you were wrong, say you were human, and unfortunately things happen. People love that, and they respond so much more when they know that they're speaking to a person and not a business. So, newsletters, do's and don'ts. So here's why I wanted to do this one. So I enjoy a good cigar every now and then. So I did finally find a pretty decent company that sells stuff online that I can just order cigars from. And this is not an exaggeration when I tell you I get a newsletter promotional email from them, bare minimum, 3.5 times a day. I tell you 3.5 because I started actually tallying it. And after 2 weeks, my average was 3.5. 3.5 friggin' emails a day from this company. I actually went to unsubscribe and decided to stick through it because I had to see why the hell they're doing this. It makes no sense. So I'm going to start with the don'ts. Don't send a damn newsletter that many times. Don't even do it. Don't do it daily. Don't do it weekly. Don't do it that often. It's ridiculous. If you do a ton, and by the way, I'm talking about, at least specifically for e-commerce sellers right now, promotional stuff. No one's going to shop with you until they get a newsletter if you constantly send out promotions, because they're always going to be expecting a discount. It needs to be relatively rare. Don't be boring. Don't have these ugly newsletters. Like, put some love into it. Make sure that you're, actually kind of giving them something interesting to look at. Make sure the brand voice matches. If you can, try to have it be a little bit entertaining. It's going to be dependent on what your brand voice is, but you kind of want it to be a little bit more entertaining so that they at least read the whole thing, especially your subject line, your snippet, which I'll touch on. Don't just blast out blog posts with nothing else to say. There's a ton of sellers I've found who thankfully are doing blog posts and they're seeing the SEO value of it. And they're like, oh, I got to promote this. Let me just shove it into my newsletter and blast it out. And basically they're just like taking the picture and the title, or the main banner picture, the title, and then just like the first quarter or like maybe the first paragraph, and then doing a read more, and then that's it. And that's crap. Don't do that. Don't go too long without sending an email. So a buddy of mine, while having a few drinks, realized that you can really have some really interesting conversations about newsletters and email lists. So our favorite so far is use it or lose it. So basically, if you don't send out an email enough, people are going to forget that they are subscribed to you and your email list will die. So you actually need to stay consistent and you need to send out emails. Don't overdo it, but you definitely don't want to underdo it either. This one really should be under do, but I needed one more for don't. So don't not adjust them. So basically, always be testing, always look at your metrics, test your day that you're sending, test your time, test your subject line, test your snippet, test your copy, your creative, like every aspect that you possibly can, you need to test. Cool? Good. Now, do's. Do make it personalized. Find a way to personalize it without creeping it out. Don't, in a promotional type newsletter or something where it's like, clearly this is going to a lot of people, I opt out of using their name. I opt out of using their company name or using their address or their city or something like that, because they're going to know that it's in most places. But by personalize it, I mean maybe you're doing a product line where maybe you do clothes and you want to do 20% off your apparel, and you're sending this out in April. Your people in the South should probably get more summer looking creative. Your people in the North should probably get more spring looking, almost winter, at least the way it's been up here. So personalize it. Don't do that weird crap where it's like, hey, Carl, nice paint job I saw in your house the other day. Like, that shit gets weird and freaks people out. Don't go that route for these types of emails. A/B test everything. So kind of mentioned this in don'ts, and I'm going to mention it in do's too. Because you really should just be A/B testing everything. I don't think I've sent an email in 10 years that wasn't being A/B tested at the time I sent it. Segment your audience. So if you're doing that apparel thing I just mentioned, you need to obviously segment out the people who maybe live in the South versus the people who live in the North, or cat lovers versus dog lovers, or truck drivers versus car drivers versus bikers. Like, you need to segment out your audience so that your creative and your copy can be relevant to the audience that you're sending. You could be blasting out an email to everyone, but you want to make sure that the people you're specifically targeting for that email blast are you're at least giving them their best chance of converting by speaking their language and showing them what they're interested in. Make it visually appealing, which still kind of comes from the don't be boring, but there was a couple of things that I really wanted to touch on where don't make them ugly. Do some nice banners, do some nice pictures, add something to it. I love the ones that are GIFs and can actually like have some movement to them. Be careful overdoing that because it can make the email heavy, in which case it won't open, and that's a whole nother issue. Give the copy some character. So I prefer to try to speak in a brand voice while also tweaking the voice just a little bit where it's got some entertainment value behind it, whether you're telling a story or you are using some kind of pun or wit or something like that, just so that the newsletter itself is a little bit more entertaining. They may not, whatever you're offering, if it's a sale or it's a product announcement or something, they may not be interested in it. But what you don't want is for them to go, I'm not interested in this, and I'm also not interested in ever hearing from you again. You want them to go, maybe, or obviously this isn't the goal, but at worst case scenario, you want them to go, this is a cute email. I don't really want this product right now, but it's funny. I'm not going to unsubscribe. And then always provide value. Always. If your value is 20%, great. Sometimes other things that I will do to adjust that same type of promotional email where I'm making sure I'm providing value is I will couple it along with a blog post that is relevant to whatever it is we're selling. So for example, we're a couple people who do these like massive like $1,000 floor type machines. And if I'm just sending out like a tool that kind of plugs into the machine or whatever it is, it's kind of like those people don't really respond. Their audience doesn't respond as well as I'd like to if I'm just like 20% off tonight. Like, they don't really care. So what I've changed it into is a blog post about how to do a specific thing using that machine. And we happen to have 20% off those tools that plug into that machine. So it's kind of, I'm providing value. I'm teaching you something new. In this case, it's a B2B. So I'm helping them learn how to make a little bit more money, maybe offer a new service. And obviously I'm trying to get them to convert on the 20% off. but you can do that with anything. There's any e-commerce seller, you can absolutely tie in your written content with your promotional stuff. I'm going to dive into a full list of automated emails that all e-commerce sellers should have. So these are all the basic ones. There's a lot of fancy ones out there, like product related ones. So, hey, you just bought this product, it can also do this, or don't forget to do this, or something like that. So that to me is a little bit more specific. So I'm going to go pretty broad here for the first one and talk about the ones that to me are a requirement. Like, you have to have these set up. So first one, welcome series. That is an email that goes to someone after they've signed up for your newsletter. So it can have a discount in it, or some user generated content, or reviews, or whatever other crap you want to put in there. It absolutely needs to be sent out. You need to send a confirmation once someone does something that is transactional. So I have given you my email. Please now send me an email confirming that I have gotten said email. Account creation. So basically, if someone purchases something from you and they create an account, which a lot of people will do because they want to plug in and easily see stuff they've ordered before, or maybe they want to track an order or something like that, send them an email with an account confirmation. It doesn't have to be too pretty. It's really more the information in it that they're going to want, because some people will forget, like, oh, I made an account, but I can't remember what my username is, or something like that. So always send an account confirmation. New customer. So this one is, I made a purchase. I've probably gotten the product by now, and then I'm going to wait like a week or so, and I'm going to send you a very personal email that appreciates you becoming a new customer of mine. You've never shopped with us before, and you finally did. Acquiring a new customer is hard. It's also not easy on the consumer side to shop with someone new that you haven't shopped with before, because sometimes you're like, I don't know how this is going to go. So you always want to send them something nice. I like to do like almost like a written letter from the founder as like an appreciation. In some cases that doesn't work. Obviously, much bigger companies, you're clearly not getting a letter from the founder, so you kind of have to decipher that on your own. Repeat customer, I do this just one more time. So once they've become a new customer, they get a new customer email, then they come and shop with you again. I then send them a second follow-up, like, thank you. It's not as personalized. It's not as, I guess, lovey is the word I'm going to use here. But it's like, thank you for coming back. So clearly we did well the first time. You liked what you got, and you came back again. We really appreciate that, because repeat business is the best business. So sending a repeat business, repeat customer, best customer. So this one could be, you kind of decipher who are our top 10 customers, and maybe it's someone who shops with you 10 times a year and spends a minimum of $4,000 a year. I don't know. But you figure out who the top ones are, and they get to be like in their own secret club. So basically, thank you for spending so much with us, for being one of our best customers, for supporting us this long, or spending this much money. Here's, something we want to offer you. Here's some cool swag. Here's a discount, like anything like that. Browser abandonment. This obviously only works if you already have their email. But if a existing customer has come and shopped with you before, you now have their email, and then later on down the road, they come back, visit your store, and don't do anything, send them an email. Say, hey, we saw you looking around. If there's anything we can help with, let us know. Or, hey, we saw you were looking at this. You may also like this, or here's a discount for this, or however you want to do that. Then customer win back. So depends on how long people typically shop with you. If they usually shop with you every couple months and they haven't shopped with you in 4 or 5 months, or maybe 6 months, trigger an email to go out to them saying, hey, it's been a while since you've been with us. We miss you. Where are you? Something like that. I'll usually have a follow-up to that email if they still haven't come back with a discount that's offering them to come back. Again, kind of depends. Discounts aren't great for everyone. Then social engagement. So this one is, to me, very important. It's a little bit more relevant to direct-to-consumer, where there's kind of a social aspect to it. But I will basically send an email a couple weeks after they've gotten the product. And maybe a couple weeks, kind of depends on the product, but I will send an email after they've gotten the product asking them to take a look at our social media, take a picture of you with a product, or you doing this or you doing that or whatever, tag us, use this hashtag, and we'd love to feature you. It has made my social medias team so much easier. It has made their job so much easier, where the users and customers are just sending them content, and they're just sending them pictures. And every time you take something on Instagram of someone who posted a picture of your product and you just repost it and give them some credit, they're going to then share that again with their audience and be like, look, so-and-so featured me, because people love to get featured all the time. So that's worked out great. Always suggest to do that if you have a social aspect. And then last but not least, it's kind of like a group of stuff. So all of the transactional things. So order confirmation, shipment confirmation, out for delivery, delivered, refund requested, stuff like that. Like all of those usually come preloaded. They probably already exist. If you're in Shopify, they absolutely already exist. I still like to give them my own feel. I like to go in there and brand them up a little bit, maybe change some of the wording, kind of, a lot of those, they're not that sexy, they're not that fun. It's just kind of I knew I needed to get this. Some of the best ones I've seen specifically for shipping is like a stork is like, it's a long story about like a stork is delivering your product, and now it's like your stork is about to fly on your roof and drop off your product. Like, it's ridiculous, but it works so well because it's actually getting people to read that email. And as far as I know, there's a whole article on this I read, and it's like the only shipping confirmation email that you actually feel like you have to forward this to someone just so that they can read it. And if you can spread your brand name by just having ridiculous stuff like that, it's awesome. I would absolutely suggest doing that. How many newsletters is too many? Please, for the love of God, stop sending so many newsletters. So one of the reasons I want to do this one, and I talked about this like when we first started this podcast, and I did finally end up unsubscribing from them. I don't know if you've listened to the podcast since the beginning, you'll know what I'm talking about, but I'm a big fan of cigars. There was a cigar company that I liked, that I was able to ship stuff here because at the time we were in the pandemic, I couldn't go anywhere, so I'm trying to figure out how I'm hanging out at home, how do I get one? So I found one online, and this is not an exaggeration when I tell you that I had, on average, 2.5 emails from them every day. And that is not, they didn't send me half an email. It's like sometimes I got 2, sometimes I got 4, and it turned out to 2.5. I sat down and did the math because I thought this was hilarious. 2.5 emails a day is fucking ridiculous for newsletters. That is insane. Don't ever do that. Now, 1 newsletter a week, still pretty bad. I wouldn't do that. So, I think a few weeks ago, I know we did this one where we talked about like ideas for newsletters. We talked about like promotional ones or company announcements or just kind of a blog roundup or something like that. And if you can get on like a regular basis of like a blog roundup, let's say once a month, or if you're doing enough blog posts, maybe twice a month, and then maybe 1 promotional email like every couple months, unless there's like a holiday or something around, that to me is kind of the perfect sweet spot. Unless you can really segment your audience, then it's a little bit different. So like, for example, we've worked with apparel companies where they'll send newsletters to certain aspects of their customer base a little bit more often than they will some others, just because of the metrics we're seeing. Or we've segmented out in the winter doing bathing suits for the South and not so much up north. So we'll segment them out. So maybe we'll do another one that month to the north and kind of change it. But usually if you're doing just like a blast out to everyone, once or twice a month is more than enough. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because obviously we're in Q4 now, and people are notorious for getting really obnoxious, especially around Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And they would start to send like an email, like I would say they'll start usually like 2 weeks before Black Friday, Cyber Monday. If you're really desperate, you'll even do one like right in the beginning of the month. Then they'll do one like a week before Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Then they'll do one the day before, then they'll do one the Monday of and say this weekend, don't forget. Then they'll do one on Wednesday and say, don't forget Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Some people will do it on Thanksgiving and say, tomorrow's the day. And then they send you one Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then, God forbid, someone is freaking doing one longer than that, and now they're sending you an after. That is an obscene amount of newsletters, and it's unnecessary. What you have to think about is your brand is fragile. You don't want to oversend so many newsletters to the point where you're annoying people. Think about if someone if like Mormons were coming to your door every day to try to convert you. That would drive me insane. I will tolerate it for like once a year is fine. But if they're at my door every day trying to convert me, I'm going to snap eventually. Just like I don't want you emailing me every day to purchase something. If I want to make a purchase, I will. You also have to think that you're going to belittle your brand. So essentially what I mean by that is if I'm a consumer and I know that I want to buy this product and I maybe buy it on a regular basis, if you constantly are sending promotional emails, I'm never going to pay full price because I know that you have a deal all the time. Or I know that your actual prices after a while are BS. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm even going to drop a name because I don't care if they find me. Fans Edge or Fanatics or NFL.com or any of those guys. I'm a big Steelers fan. I'm always trying to buy like new stuff for whenever the hell we win, and I go, screw it, I'm buying a hat. And they always have like on a weekly basis like 60% off or spend $50 and get free shipping plus $20 back, and it's almost every week. And then I get an email from one of those guys, whether it's NFL.com or Fanatics or FanEdge or God knows what the other ones are, got to be at least 2 or 3 times a day. And it's obscene and it's obnoxious to the point where I've started to unsubscribe from him. And what it's really starting to tell me is I'm never going to pay full price because you always have sales. So I'll just sit around and I'll wait. I don't need it right now. And then I also now know that your numbers are bullshit. Your prices are a complete fucking lie. So if they're not telling me the accurate price number from the beginning, now I don't have that much trust in it. Unfortunately, they've developed this friggin' monopoly, so I'm kind of stuck with them. But in other companies, it's something you kind of have to keep in mind. So sending out too many newsletters can really start to belittle your brand, especially if you do it on a consistent basis. On the blog roundups, I like consistency, but on a promotional side, having a sale every month on the last week of the month is great. But then that means that your third week of the month, people are probably not going to purchase with you as much because they know that the following week you're going to have a sale. So you have to keep that kind of stuff in mind. You can probably send out more if you segment your audience a little bit and change your message around, but I would definitely say slow down the amount of newsletters.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ecomm Show. Head over to ecommshow.com to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on the BlueTuskr YouTube channel. The Ecomm Show is brought to you by BlueTuskr, a full-service digital marketing company specifically for e-commerce sellers looking to accelerate their growth. Go to BlueTuskr.com now for more information. Make sure to tune in next week for another amazing episode of the Ecomm Show.